Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Everything that's wonderful is what I feel when.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay Lyons. I'm an educational justice coach working in the K-12 and college education spaces. I am coming to you from what is currently known as Framingham, Massachusetts, the land of the indigenous peoples of the Massachusetts, the Nipmuc, and the Pawtucket nations. I often talk to educators and administrators about educational justice. And because we're all connected to education in some way, we are former students, we might be teachers, we might be caretakers of people in the education system. I will briefly share with you, my vision for the education system. And that is one in which decisions are made collectively with stakeholders, with caretakers, with administrators, with teachers, and with students. So there's this collective stakeholder capacity that is thriving and decisions are made with everyone. That is sustainable equity at the core. Additionally, I also have this vision for education in which students are joyfully learning in a project-based learning curriculum in which they're able to think critically through the lens of intersectional feminism, power, anti-racism, and they're able to critique oppression when they see it. And not only that, but they're given the tools and they're given opportunities to lead to advance justice. I see teachers that are joyful teaching in this way and everyone being able to bring their whole selves to school. So we may not all be teachers who are listening right now. And so what I want to do is extrapolate, I think, what is required for us to get to that dream that I have for education, and really take a zoomed out view of what is required for us to advance justice in any space, to bring our whole selves to any space, to our daily lives. And I believe that's three things. So the first is to think big. We need to have big thinking views. I often cite Bettina Love and her quote about freedom dreams, where she says they're dreams grounded in the critique of injustice. So when we see injustice, we are able to critique it and we're able to dream beyond what currently is. So this idea of thinking big is critical. We need it. If we can't dream up of reality beyond what currently is, we'll never get there. So we need to think big. The second piece is to act brave. And if we're acting brave, we're taking courageous action to advance justice, even though it might be uncomfortable. We're going to sit in that discomfort. We're going to seek learning opportunities. We're going to be lifelong learners, and we're going to constantly act with courage, with bravery to advance that justice in all forms, in all places of our lives, at work and at home. And then finally, we need to bring our best selves to our lives, right? We need to live our lives as our best selves. And that best self, to me, is one that centers justice and equity. And so how do we bring that best self, that thriving self, to all aspects of our life? How do we be fully present? How do we have joy? How do we experience the joy of advancing justice and eradicating oppression and the benefits that that has on our souls and our lives and our health? And so think big, act brave, be your best self. To give you an example of a time that I've used this beyond the educational space, I was an athlete in high school and I broke my arm my senior year. So my entire career, my entire since an elementary school student age, I was like, I'm going to be this great athlete, this varsity athlete that when I get into my senior year, it's really going to culminate in all this great stuff. Maybe I'll play, in college and scouts will come to my games. And I broke my arm and I was completely out of the basketball and softball season. I was in a cast and a sling for most of my senior year of high school. So dream shattered. What I needed to do was think big. I needed to think beyond the current identity I held for myself, which was a basketball player or a softball player. And I had to act brave in the face of the challenges that confronted me. So what this looked like for me was I said, okay, you know what? I can run. That doesn't involve my arms as much, right? Once my arm healed and I was able to run, so I'm going to start running. And then of course I needed to dream bigger because I'm a big dreamer. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to run a marathon. And so being not a great runner, I had run a little cross country in high school. I said, I'm going to run this marathon. And I signed up for my first one. I got heat stroke in the middle of it. I was hallucinating and grabbing ice off the sandy ground. It was in San Diego. And I was in this strip where we were kind of running on a beach, and it's all gross ice that someone else before me had used, sweaty and disgusting. And I just started putting it on my face. It was a low point. I finished the race though, and I was like, okay, that's a win, but I know I can do better. So I'm going to continue to think big. I'm going to complete a whole race. Next race comes around a few years later. I trained for the Philadelphia Marathon. I woke up that morning with a stomach bug, and I threw up, I think 13 times throughout the race, walked several miles of it, but finished. And then a few years later, I said, you know what? I want to run the New York City Marathon. And I had the best race of my life. I felt like I could keep going after I had finished. It was amazing. And it really came from thinking big. That dream was there. I held on to that dream. I knew I could do better, right? And I envisioned what that would feel like to complete that race, feeling good. And then I also had to act brave in the face of throwing up and hallucinating and all of these challenges. And the fact that it takes forever to train for a marathon, I was like, I'm doing it. And I was able to do it and had an amazing experience. The other piece of that is that I needed to bring my best self to that in those moments of absolute despair when I thought I would just like to flag down the ambulance and stop running this race. I was able to connect to that big dream, connect to my courage, and connect to the thing that I think makes me, a full person, which is a bit of resilience, a bit of positivity and optimism in the face of challenge, and that dedication to who I wanted to be. I think of that every morning when I get out of bed. I'm like, not really sure if I want to go for a run today. I'm really feeling like I'd rather lay in bed for an extra 30 minutes. And that's really important to me, right? To recognize that actually my most creative self, my best self, usually comes out on a run or right after a run when those endorphins are flowing and that creativity is happening. And I'm listening to a podcast and my brain is just flowing with ideas. Those best ideas that I've had for lessons, for my work, for my life, those aha moments come during runs. And so it's important for me to remember to bring my best self. I need to keep running and I need to keep being active because that's what works for me. So my final call to you, I encourage you in whatever walk of life you are in, whatever work you're in, whatever your personal life looks like, think big, act brave, and be your best self. You can follow me on most social channels at Lindsay Beth Lyons. I'm mostly on LinkedIn. You can also check out my website, lindsaybethlyons.com, or listen to my podcast, Time for Teachership.
Thank you for joining us for the 2021 Train of Positivity Virtual Summit. If you have enjoyed this positive message, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. If sharing, please don't forget to use the hashtag Train of Positivity. Continue to have a great day, and thanks again for tuning in.